about doing business in Nyeri County, it came to this Senate. That the same companies were complained about doing money laundering, and a decision of the High Court by Justice Maina has been tabled before you. And today, we are complaining that the same companies are helping to do corruption and money laundering. And that's the reason why we bring those companies. Please notice that in an impeachment, because I've been asked about threshold, and I know you know about it, my work here is not to prove criminal liability. It is not to prove beyond reasonable doubt. My work here is not to prove civil liability, but to show political responsibility. And I have been able to do that. In terms of Vipingo Ridge, the question I want to invite honorable senators, and I request that you listen to me. I was told yesterday that Vipingo Ridge, the two sons of His Excellency the Deputy President, are mere directors, and that the shares are owned by the estate of the late Derito Gachagua. But then you ask yourself, all of you here, you have children, why would my brother's children own my estate and not my children? Why would my brother's children be the ones who are directors in my estate and not my own children? If you die today, will your children be the ones being directors of your properties, or it is the children of your brothers? Don't you see this is suspicious ownership? And that, because I talked about circumstantial evidence, that is to be compared with the affidavit of Mr. Jomo in terms of how Jomo was approached to be proxy in buying the property, and how Jahenda, the question that has been asked, is the one operating the accounts. And we have been able to show that the same Jahenda, the same lady who works at the DP's office, is the same person who is the manager at the hotel and is the one who is operating the accounts. So I invite you to see the web of secrecy, the web of conspiracy. It is a web. And this is why I said these are white-collar crimes. They are done by intelligent people. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to get direct evidence, but in the totality of the circumstances, it points to money laundering. This, please tell us Therefore, to my contention, that issue is already proved. In terms of the NIS address in Mombasa and why we complain about it, imagine, and I do not want to imagine that, somebody was a member of Al-Shabaab, and the deputy president, none other than the deputy president, stood up and said our intelligence system has collapsed. Wouldn't that be the right time to strike? That is the risk that the country faced by that particular announcement. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Let us have the second witness. As the counsel for the DP responds or clarifies on the issues raised towards them, may we have the second witness available for purposes of clarifications. Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me begin with the tortured question of the estate of the late Nderito Gachagua. It is stick on Honorable Mutuse for the rest of his years on earth.
Counsel for the Deputy President.
Yes.
There are very few clarifications that were directed towards you.
Yes.
So I'll give you 5 minutes. You're not responding to the clarifications by Mutuse. You're responding to the clarification as sought.
Those are the ones I am. Honorable Speaker, there are quite a number of clarifications, especially on this estate issue, which please allow me 10 minutes.
All right.
Thank you very much, Senate. Now, I began my cross-examination of Honorable Mutuse yesterday with asking him how long he has practiced law and what law he has practiced. The problems you have as a Senate, as a quasi-judicial body, are born out of inexperience of legal practice. If you had practiced any succession law, I'm answering the question.
Order, Honorable Senators.
I'm answering the question.
I'm sorry, Senator Kavindu, just have a seat. I couldn't take that.
Yes.
What is the source of this?
I asked him yesterday. He answered the question.
Yes, Counsel for DP. What exactly did you say?
I just wanted to say that the National Assembly was provided with an affidavit by the executors of the will of the late Nderito Gachagua. It is before you. It is volume number 4, stated, called the Further Affidavit of Nderito Gachagua, regarding Gachagua. It should be before you. In that affidavit, the two executors state in comprehensive detail everything concerning that particular estate. They are as follows. 1, the estate property was divided in accordance with the will. The probate matter commenced and went all the way to the end to conclusion. All issues were resolved within the court case and in a sense are now res judicata. That is issue number 1. Issue number 2, you will find in that affidavit between pages 11 and pages 19.
Who sought that clarification?
I was asked, the question was asked here, I think, by Senator Dulo asked.
For DP, do not respond to what Honorable Mutuse said.
Senator
Pick
Dulo.
a senator's issue and respond to it.
That's what I'm responding to.
Exactly. So whose clarification are you?
Senator Dulo asked, can you please address the question of disinheriting the widows, if Hunter could confirm that? I believe she did. That's what I'm answering, yes. And so the will, as I'm explaining, does not disinherit the children or the widows or anybody else. It is merely because in the motion brought before you, there were properties listed in the motion that were part of the estate. That is the only reason this estate has become the subject of proceedings before the Senate and the National Assembly. So when you look at the will, as I've said, between pages 11 and 12, at page 13, if you have the document before you, this is volume number 4, there is a long list of how this estate was divided. And I won't go through it, you'll be able to read it yourself. That's number 1. Number 2, you will see an affidavit by the executors, except the Deputy President who did not sign this affidavit. These are the 2 remaining executors who have signed it. explaining between pages 4 and page 9 everything that was done in accordance with the law and in accordance with the law of succession, and that no one's property was taken away.
Senator Dulo, you know our rules. Proceed, Counsel. Proceed.
Yes. Now, I've been asked some questions about the issue of the Moranga video and about the shareholder agreements and whether two wrongs make a right. Our position is the opposite. Our position was that the address by the president in Moranga was in fact in confirmation of the agreements. The president was merely saying that they are implementing the agreements they agreed upon, and it was incumbent upon his deputy to assist his president in confirming that they were implementing the agreements. That is the purpose of the video. That is the purpose of those agreements. It is not to say kufa makanga, kufa dereva. I think Senator Beth asked that question. It is to say okoeni makanga na muokoe dereva. That is what we're asking you to do this morning. Senator, I believe Eddie, Senator Eddie Owiti, my good friend, has asked about the interrelation between Articles 91 and Article 232 and how those interact with the agreements. If I would call your attention, honorable senators, to the contracts themselves again, I don't know that you have them. The contracts are in volume 3, and I'm referring you to page 429. At page 429, this is what the agreement said, and I'm reading, this is the primary agreement that was signed between UDA and between Ford Kenya and ANC. This is what it said. Further terms, parameters, and details of the sharing of positions of responsibility in the national government pursuant to this article shall be contained in a separate schedule to this agreement, which schedule shall be negotiated and executed before the date of the general elections scheduled on 9th August. So there were subsequent agreements executed on how these shares were to be divided and to be implemented. That is issue number 1. But issue number 2, the parties gave themselves some room, and you'll see this at page 430. This is Article 22, Subarticle G. Notwithstanding the content of this article, the founding member parties hereby commit to make any adjustments that may be necessary to accommodate the development priorities of other parts of the country to ensure equitable distribution of Kenya's national resources and wealth for the benefit of every citizen and every part of Kenya. When the Deputy President takes a stand, we will be demonstrating to you with videos where both he and his boss, the President, went out of their way to say that the voting did not matter to how they were going to implement the development agenda. I think I was asked whether there are any contracts or agreements that were signed on behalf of Mount Kenya. I did not see any. We don't have any thus far. There were several parties from Mount Kenya, but they did not negotiate anything. Then an important question. The Deputy President did not say the government is a company. When you read the statements, he was making an example. It's like a company. It was a tool to explain a document. That's all he was doing. I'm pressed for time here. Yes, Senator Chariot asked a question about two wrongs making a right, and whether the current DP is conceding that because he did what the former DP did, that then he's guilty. Again, far from the truth. We are asserting, when you read the documents, the documents at page 412, this is the article where the President spoke, the former Deputy President spoke in Moyale. This is what he said. The Deputy President reiterated that he used to ask tough questions when attending the National Security Council meeting about schemes of murder. It is something that has troubled me a lot, and that is why we have put it to the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto that extrajudicial killing must come to an end. It is illegal and constitutional and offends every principle of the right of life. In law, there is no secrecy where crimes are committed or there is violation of the Constitution. The Deputy President was merely following the mentorship of the man who occupied the office before him, and was not releasing any secrets that did not concern illegalities or unconstitutionality. So that deals with the question of oath of secrecy. I think that was asked. And because of shortage of time, I'll allow my learned colleague, Mr. Elisha Ongoya to come and answer a few questions. Thank you very much, honorable senators, for your time and your attention.
How many minutes, clerk?
Mr. Speaker, 3 minutes will be enough for me.
No, we need to know how much time you have. Okay. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ongoya for the Deputy President.
Proceed, Counsel.
Thank you.
Counsel.
To the question whether the Deputy President is aware that county governments are distinct, our answer is simple. Governments at national and county levels are distinct and interdependent. So the constitutional architecture is not to create pigeonholes, is to create cooperative and interdependent governments. And just to bolster that argument, you will notice that the allegation against the Deputy President on Nairobi River relocation is not that he destabilized Nairobi County government, is that he refused to support implementation of a resolution of cabinet, a national government institution. Meaning even at that level, that was the understanding that Nairobi River. On the question of Julian Jahenda, allow me to say this. The person who has brought Julian Jahenda in these proceedings is a deponent of an affidavit. Allow us to hold him to account on that affidavit when he comes to testify himself, because we have questions for him around this witness too. Then finally, on the question of Treetops Hotel, let this be very clear distinction. Treetops Hotel was not acquired by the company in question from KWS. Treetops Hotel was an assignment of lease. When the Kenya government gives you a lease, say 99 years, you can sell that lease. So it was an assignment that was already assigned by KWS to a third party. So the construction that associated with the Deputy President, rightly or wrongly, got this property from KWS is actually wrong. There was a completely different private property that had a lease. Then that company holding that lease assigned that lease. Thank you so much. My 2 minutes are over.
The second witness. Order, honorable senators. Senator Olekina, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question to Mr. Mulwa. Mr. Mulwa, if you look at the response in volume 6 by the Deputy President, the Deputy President says as follows, 4.2, volume 6, which is in page 11, in response to the allegations that you called him, or he called you, to be able to push for the bid board. He said that this is clear in paragraph 4 of the witness affidavit of Andrew Mulwa. He contradicts himself by claiming that on the 11th July 2023, I pressured him to surrender the original bid board, yet by the letter dated 5th of May 2023, KEMSA had requested for collections of the original bid. Thus, there was no cause for pressure to be exerted on Mr. Mulwa or any other person. Now, in your affidavit on page 70, you put an excerpt of your WhatsApp or communication between yourself and Dr. Rigathi, where Dr. Rigathi, it's alleged, he said, Dr. Ikunu Rigathi here, kindly contact me. When possible, there is a document for HE we are trying to collect. In the same affidavit, you have annexed 3 letters. One letter dated June 30th, and I want you to keep in mind of the 30th of May. June 30th, which is a letter sent to you, from KEMSA to ESCC requesting for the bid board. That is June 30. That is a month after the date that the Deputy President alleges to have received information from KEMSA asking him to collect the bid bond. Secondly, you have a letter dated 11th July, where you communicate to the company called Shabika Impex Private Limited, asking them to collect the bid bond. Yesterday, when you were being cross-examined, you said that you were afraid, you felt pressured when the Deputy President called you, allegedly, and asked you to surrender the bid bond. Could you please give us a chronological of events? Because this letter is dated 11th that you sent to them. You allege that the Deputy President called you on 11th.
Honorable Rule 23 of the Rules of Procedure. SC Okenyuri, he's gotten the question. He's gotten the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also wish to ask Dr. Andrew Muller the following. Confirm if the Deputy President did call you. And finally, what was the issue with the bid bond that you said yesterday you were trying to go pick from EACC? Thank you.
Senator Kavindo.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Speaker, my question is directed to the to Mutuse and maybe his lawyers. Yes, I'm directing it to his lawyers. Please, kindly give me my time. I didn't talk, Olekina, when you were talking.
Senator Kavindo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me go ahead.
Address yourself to the chair.
Thank you.
Proceed.
One of my questions is about the speech which Honorable Mutuse said that the Deputy President addressed from Mombasa. My question is, from intervening or questioning the National Intelligence Service, or is there any law directing them where they should ask these questions from? Two, the lady, Honorable Justice Esther Maina, has she ever made any complaint after the case was done? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Bone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to Dr. Mulwa. Dr. Mulwa, I can attest that the number you have put here, through which His Excellency the President pressured you, he relates very well with me, because in the days we used to talk with him, I used to use the same number. Your evidence is so critical that we would like you to walk us through that conversation between the Deputy President and yourself, during which time he was putting pressure on you. Mr. Speaker, sir, Tom Masharia, Counsel, you are a man of many years of experience, and you know the hierarchy of laws. The Constitution is at the apex, and all other laws are subservient. In your attempt to justify, or rather to protect, and secure the Deputy President from the accusation that he breached the Constitution, Article 27, which prohibits him from discrimination, you have chosen to justify it by using an act of parliament called the Political Parties Act that provides for the agreement. Tell me, are you telling me that by dint of that act, which is subservient to the Constitution, which the Deputy President violated. Therefore, the act sets him free. And finally, my younger brother, Ongoya, you have told us that for Mutuse to be able to prove that there was insubordination, he needed to bring something from the supervisor.
Senator Hamida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remember I am the one who raised this motion, this statement on the mosquito net for investigation. So I am so much aware of this investigation that went on. But Dr. Mulwa, apart from the financial loss that KEMSA incurred, did the alleged interference of the relationship, the alleged interference affect the relationship between the Global Fund and KEMSA? Because I remember, of course, the tender was terminated, which was about 3.7 billion. Global Fund terminated the tender. So was there any a relationship lost between the two? Number two, did the PS Josephine Mburu and CEO Terry Ramadhan lose their jobs due to this tender process, during the tendering process of the mosquito net tender? Number three, did you feel intimidated and coerced to act given the office of the DP? Thank you.
Senator Wafula.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Daktari Mulwa, madai kwamba ulipata simu kutoka kwa naibu rais kufuatilia jambo linalohusu mwanawe. Wewe kama mtumishi wa umma, unapopata simu kutoka kwa kiongozi wako wa kitaifa akifuata yale yanayohusu mwanawe, unaona ni vema kutekeleza jinsi anavyotaka ama kufuata katiba ili kutetea yeyote aliyeomba nafasi ya kufanya kazi? Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Munyihaji.
Pia mimi swali langu ni kwa Daktari Mulwa kwamba hii zabuni ulisema kuwa ilifutiliwa mbali. Je, wakati ilipofutiliwa mbali kuna hasara yoyote ilitokea kwa serikali ama kwa KEMSA kutokana na kufutiliwa mbali kwa zabuni hiyo? Pili ni kuwa wewe kama mkurugenzi wa KEMSA ulichukua hatua gani ulipopata simu ama ulipopata maelezo kutoka kwa naibu wa rais kwamba hiyo tenda ama hiyo zabuni ipewe mtu fulani? Asante.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Dr. Mulwa, I have two related questions to you. One, is the return of bid boards part of the procurement process? And if it is part of the procurement process, would you say that a call from the Deputy, His Excellency Deputy President, on this issue amounts to interfering with the procurement process? Thank you.
Senator Mariam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. My question is to Dr. Mulwa, that you said DP calls you. Is there, when he calls you, is there any interference with the procurement process? Thank you.
Witness, you may now proceed to make the clarifications as sought by the honorable senators. You have 10 minutes to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable senators. I will try to answer the questions that have been put forth on the matter of the procurement of the long-lasting mosquito nets by the various senators. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Senator for Narok asked me to give a chronology of what happened so that I may be able to bring out the issue of the pressure that I got from His Excellency the Deputy President and alluded to the letters that I have submitted in regard to the tenders. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, sir, on around the end of April, the Global Fund wrote to the Kenya Global Fund Management Office, communicating a pre-award review decision to terminate the procurement of the 3.7 billion mosquito net tenders. Mr. Speaker, sir, this was after the procurement had been done earlier on in February by KEMSA, and it's a usual procedure during the procurement under the Global Fund, after the evaluation of the tenders, the evaluation report is shared with the Global Fund to authenticate if full procurement procedures and law have been followed. On review, the Global Fund realized that the tender, which the evaluation committee had recommended to be awarded to one Shobika Impex Limited, had an issue. And Mr. Speaker, I will refer to the bid bond, which I shared in the documents. In the motion, I think it's page is page 76 out of 85. Mr. Speaker and honorable senators, if you look at the bid bond that I'm referring to, the bid bond down there has a stamp of the 21st of February 2023, having been received by one Monica at 9:37 a.m. Mr. Speaker, sir, this tender was running at the time this bid bond is being received. The tender was supposed to close on the 10th of March, but the earlier closure, this bid bond, did not come as part of the tender document. Usually, bid bonds are annexures to the tender document, and therefore, this bid bond came as an ordinary mail. Further, if you look on top of that page, it's written PD, which is Procurement Department, FY&F for your next necessary action, and I can confirm the signature for the CEO who was there before me on the 23rd of February while the tender was opening. In other words, Mr. Speaker, sir, this bid bond already had issues even before the tender closed in the document, which is already an irregularity in the procurement. Mr. Speaker, after the cancellation of these tenders, the Global Fund, this issue brought an outcry, and as a result, a principal secretary, the CEO, and officials from the Ministry of Health and KEMSA were suspended as a result. The PS was actually dismissed. Mr. Speaker, sir, an investigation was instituted by the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, PICA. One company wrote to us on around June 12th or thereabout, asking for return of the bid bond. This company was Shobika, and we were able to, we did not have the document because ESCC and other investigating agencies had taken the original documents. And therefore, we wrote back and informed them of the state. And when July came, I think the investigations were happening, officers were recording statements, and that is when I got a call from the Deputy President asking me to surrender the bid bond to Dr. Rigathi Ikino. On the same day, because I called ESCC, I informed them that, and for the record, Honorable Speaker, I had never received a call from anyone above my cabinet secretary. This was the first time I received a call from a sitting deputy president and requesting for documents that were under investigations. Mr. Speaker, in my 15 years of public service, I had never been asked to do that. And therefore, I felt coerced, and I had to leave the business that I had for the day, go to ESCC, follow up the bid bond so that I am able to retrieve it. I was actually able to write a letter to them and follow it up because I had written a letter earlier, and I followed up and sat there for 5 hours for them to discharge the bid bond. And on the same date, I wrote a letter and called for them to collect the bid bond. I think, Mr. Speaker, that explains the conversation and the pressure that I felt as an officer serving in public service. I have explained that the company that had been awarded this tender through the technical evaluation was Shobika Impex, whose local agent, sole agent, is Crystal Limited. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have walked the Senate through the conversation that I had with the question asked by Honorable Dr. Boni Alwale on what transpired and how I was able to get the bid bond. Yes, beyond the financial loss, Mr. Speaker, the nets that we were supposed to buy 14 million nets under KEMSA procurement. As a result of purchasing these nets through the Global Fund WAMBO system, we could only purchase 10.2 million nets. Global Fund could only supply 10.2 million nets. That means Kenyans lost 3 million also nets as a result. Secondly, there was a delay. We were supposed to implement the distribution of nets to the public from September 2023. That was not possible as a result of the delays. We were only able to start distribution of the nets from January this year. In effect, there was a loss in terms of money, there was a loss in terms of number of nets, and 3, there was a loss in terms of citizens did not enjoy the protection that they would have gotten from the nets in the time that had been envisaged. Indeed, I can confirm, and I've already mentioned, that PS Josephine was dismissed, and acting CEO and other officers were also suspended. About following the law, when I got the call, Honorable Speaker and Senators, I was able to, consult the investigating authorities, and through correspondence, I was able to get the documents as per the law. And therefore, I did not in any way go out of the law as a result. Can I wind up?
To the remaining queries.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, whether return of bid bond is part of procurement Indeed, return of bid bond is not part of the procurement process per se, but after the procurement process, return of bid bond is a usual procedure because people had given commitments in banks, in insurances, and therefore returning bid bonds is a procedure. The extraordinary circumstance in this matter is one, the bid bond that had been submitted was not part of the tender document per se, and number two, this was a matter that was under investigation. And therefore, for the Deputy President to push for the bid bond to be returned, it means that it was pushing for interference of an investigation that was already ongoing. I already gave account that I had to personally go to EACC to get the document. Mr. Speaker, I submit. Thank you.
There's some clarifications that are sought from Council Macharia.